After seeing these few images of my guest, you would think that he's a gold medalist bodybuilder, but he's not. He is one of South Africa's creative photographers and an award winning DOP. Salam, Shamiel. How are you doing?
Assalamu alaikum, my brother. How are you doing? I am doing very well, man.
I'm so glad I know you're very busy also. I'm so glad that you are available to do this. When was, I mean, we haven't seen each other face to face for a while. I mean, years.
No, for a very long time.
I remember
I think,
bumping into you in Melville a year or two
yes,
ago,
correct.
and that was
That was
about
when we,
it for another long period.
yes, yes. I mean, the thing for me, though, because I'm Cape Town based, we do a lot of traveling out to Joburg and around the country. So when I'm in Joburg, depending on time, but next time I'm there, we must make time to hook up, to spend some time, chill, have a coffee, whatever, catch up and things like that. So doesn't always have to be on a podcast or something.
No, but that's actually why I enjoy doing this Siraaj Says so much is the fact that I'm reaching out to people like you, old friends, old work colleagues, people that we have a shared history, and we share our experiences with the viewers. And so I love the fact that we're actually doing this. But yes, you're right. We need to also do this in person. Especially now when we're getting older, you kind of long for that contact of people that had a big impact in our lives. And you are obviously one of those people that have had an impact in my life. And our journey started when we met at the high school when we were at Alexander Sinton. And anybody that knows the history of Alexander Sinton, it was and is in a very politically progressive school, and we were thrown in the deep end in the sense of becoming politically activists. You could not but become politically aware and active in the realities of South Africa in 1985, 86, 87, and really being thrown in front of it with all the political unrest. And so that's the environment that I got to know you. But the one thing I remember, if I think back on from in that time, was the fact that I always kind of remember seeing you with a stills camera. How did your journey start with becoming a photographer?
I think photography for me at a very young age. I think I was probably about 8 or 9 years old. Um, my late grandfather, uh, Mr. Lombard, gave me one of the first cameras because he had an antique shop at that time. And obviously, at antique shop, they had all these little cameras. And I remember for my birthday, he gave me, I think I turned about nine, I think 9 years old, and he gave me a little camera, the square camera with little square block flashes that you could put on. And every time it goes, tick, you have to
Yeah, I
put it
remember
in.
those.
And I started taking pictures of my friends in the street playing cricket, playing soccer. I think for me, what even drew me even further into getting into to journalism was um, on I think it was my 11th birthday. My mom took me to the Kismet. Kismet Athlone, they had the Kismet in the Athlone Theatre. We went to
Mm.
Kismet.
The bioscope band, what theater?
I went for a chip roll and I went to Kismet. And then I watched this movie. I think it was 1981. I don't give my age away. 1981, that movie of called El Salvador of Nick Nolte when he went into El Salvador and he was photographing the situation. I was like, wow, you know, this is what I want to do. This is the shit. Um, and eventually, kind of doing that, that inspired me. I started taking more pictures. I think my I think I got a good break. I think around 1987 because my uncle is a very good, well-known photographer, Rashid Lombard. He obviously people obviously know Rashid Lombard. Um, said to me, listen, dude, come up to the place called the Cape Town Press Center. The Cape Town Press Center in the 80s was where all the international journalists came to. And from there, they would go into the townships and they would cover the different parts of the Western Cape. So getting that environment, I saw all these amazing photographers from America, from all over. I'm talking about men and women. And the place was called the Cape Town Press Center, and it had a dark room. It was in the old days, you used to like use film, black and white film for black and white, and color slide for color. So Rashid put me in the dark room and said, "Brad, this is where you're going to be at." So I spent like 4 years of my photography career in a dark room, processing film, printing film. I think my first camera was a Pentax, and the only lens I had was a 50mm 1.8 lens. And then I started, because it was around it was the 80s, 88, 89, there were a lot of street protests. So during that time, we used to go down to downtown, and there was always marches. There was always ties burning. It was around the corner from Parliament. And I started documenting what was happening in our history, with the 50mm lens, black and white film. And once we were done, I used to run up to the press center, because we were on the corner of Short Market and Blear Street, and process the film and make contact sheets. And in the interim, other photographers gave me their film to process and film. And I had to start printing their film and, stay in the dark room, because as soon as the photographs are printed, it went down the Cape Times or Argus, or it went out on the wires, So I learned at the time also, yeah. When I start also coming back to the question about my photographic career, I couldn't go to a photographic school because it was for whites only. All the colleges, all the schools were like, yeah, Jake, they can't call me your clear as you know what I'm saying? So that pushed me to kind of do my own thing. Luckily, I had like family members. With Rashid, he is an amazing photographer too.
I remember his jazz musicians,
and at the time, a lot of South African photographers, I would say black photographers who worked, like Peter Makubani, George Hallett, Benny Gould, a lot of Fanny Jason, all these guys, and also seeing other photographers, black photographers of the 60s, that I learned from these guys, and it was a humbling experience just to understand what it is to be a black photographer in apartheid, because also that time they came down as a photographer, especially because they didn't want the national
cover the events, the riots, and I remember that.
But yeah, I think it was amazing. The Cape Town Press Center was an amazing space, because I remember they were basically, when the Freya Weekblad started, I think that they had an office there. I remember the BBC had their offices there. I remember there were other photographers there. So I could talk to them about photography and understand what photography is all about, and also being in the news medium. So that was a good entry.
Good start.
But it was learning on your feet. I had to first make coffee and tea and clean, and then I had a camera, and it was a good learning experience, humbling experience.
Well, basically what you've described to me is the value of apprenticeship learning experience. So that is how you started with photography, okay? What blows my mind is that, and people, you need to go and look at Shamiel's Instagram feed, is the fact that you took the skills that you learned from the manual skills from photography, and you're doing crazy creative photography work with using your cell phone.
Yeah.
So how does that work?
I think that the one thing I learned from the greats, especially people like the late George Hallett, if anybody knows George Hallett. George Hallett was an amazing mentor, in the sense that he said to me, whatever you have in your hand, if you can understand how to use it with a lens, you can create, whether it's a big camera or a little pinhole camera, that you can create amazing images, because you can give a person the most expensive camera with all the lenses. If they don't have talent, they ain't gonna take shit. You can give a talented person any camera, even with one lens, and that's where I learned with a 50mm lens for 5 years. Because a 50mm is a standard. It's not a wide angle. People understand what prime's all about.
You have to get to the image. You have to get to the subject.
And also, for me, I worked a lot with wide angles. So I had a 50mm, and my widest was a 24mm. Those two extremes. But I've learned to use a wide angle and create images, because that's how you learn and that's how you grow. But like I said, I use my mobile phone because most of the time, people know me, I do a lot of video documentaries. I'm walking out with a big camera. So my cell phone's quite here. I see image and I click it and I have it. So it's all about the understanding light, understanding composition. And at that point, you need to grab it, And I mean, mobile phones these days are amazing because they
Amazing.
come up
Yeah.
with amazing lenses, you know. So I
I,
remember spending time in the dark room. We had Carl Zeiss lenses in the largest because what was most important was the glass and Leica lenses. These mobile phones got Carl Zeiss and Leica lenses on. So I mean, it's like having like a real mobile, and then
oh,
it's got wide angle, got poor, I'm like saying,
no, it's crazy. It's crazy, especially like you say, you're coming from that background and now you got a mobile phone. But I strongly encourage everybody to go to look for Shamiel Albertyn's social media accounts. You'll see mind-blowing content, still images, and it's you normally take these images while busy covering. Doing documentary work and stuff like that. How did you get your break from moving from still photography to videography?
I started freelancing at Reuters. Reuters was based in Cape Town. Now, if people don't know, Reuters is an international television news agency. And at that time, Jimmy Matthews was the bureau chief. And he said, well, I mean, come hang out, come see what you want to come do. But at that point at Reuters, I was making tea, I was cleaning the equipment. And eventually my first break became where I became a sound guy. So my first break before being a cameraman, I was a sound person. So I had like a SQN4. I was, and that time also there were a lot because of Mandela just after '94. There were a lot of things happening,
Mm,
So you also was at the time within the new international news, you were competing. Reuters was competing against AP, against German TV, against the BBC. So it wasn't just filming; it was film and get it out there. And at that point, we had to go to C Point, SABC C Point, to send video footage.
mm.
So it'd be interviews with Mandela, it'd be 100 other press people. And then as soon as we're done, we get in our car from Parliament and we the Reuters office down in Rubik Street. When we park there, edit, drive like a crazy all the way to Sea Point. Because Jimmy said, listen here, you pay the fines. Get there, send the video footage. And I did it for 4 years. And um, I remember one day the way I got into doing videography or becoming camera person was Reuters had, it was a Sunday morning. And I think there was a cameraman from Joburg was supposed to fly down and do the story because Mandela was going to Langa. I think it was 93. He was going to Langa. And apparently, let me get the date straight because I was talking about 94, 93. No, he wasn't president yet, I remember. It was probably the end of 93 because 94 was the elections.
Mm.
And I got to office. It was a cold Sunday morning, and I get a phone call, and the guy says, "Listen, this guy's not coming down from Joburg." He said, "You're gonna have to go to the township by yourself." I'm like, "Ooh, what?" There's a camera in the cupboard. I remember opening up the cupboard. Yes, the camera in front of me. It was a big bloody Beta cam SP camera. The lens was still kind of, and I'm thinking, "Oh shit." Okay, showed me how to use the white balance. Showed me where the record button was. Put the camera on your shoulder. And then, yeah, I had to go to Langa, and it was great. I mean, I remember getting there and Mandela walking around singing, Twinkle, twinkle, little star, I wonder what you... And I filmed this, and when you got back to office and seen, I didn't even have a chance, even it was, the editing was very different. So I
Mm.
seen it straight to Joburg, and they were like, well done, bro. We went out there. So, and then from there, I never looked back.
Just
You
what a
know.
story. What a
Ek
story.
het diep water in fucking gegooi. Hulle het gesê jy kan jy swem. Jy gaan daar's haie maar jy swem.
I mean, for people who don't know, if you haven't worked news,
Yeah.
with Madiba, where it's like the equivalent today with Malema, wherever Madiba was, you had a massive contingent of world news. So you had to jostle to get a good position. It's not rocking up and it's a pit of just knocking and getting your camera in. So it's not the luxury of shooting, like corporate videos. And then the fact that you were sent out by your bureau, whatever, it meant that if you didn't come back with footage, usable footage, your career is over.
There's any cut, my bro.
Your
And that's the thing. They don't understand when you talk about hard news in South Africa in the 90s, it's hard news. You need to be a survivor. You need to be a brawler. I'm not in the sense of a fighter, but you need to shoot a sequence of, because remember, you can't just keep the camera wide. You need
Mm.
your close-ups, you need your wides, and as you're doing it, there's other cameramen around you circling you all the time.
And you don't
So
have
you
directors
don't have
telling you,
time.
shoot this,
So
shoot
you
that.
communicate with your sound guy.
Yeah,
And remember, the guys in Joburg are waiting for it.
yeah,
They're
yeah.
waiting
So
because in Joburg,
completely,
I need
no,
to go to
no,
London,
it's,
and then from London it goes to the rest of the world. People don't realize, and I mean, it was that's why they call it hard news. And a lot of my colleagues, I would say, because especially doing hard news, you get anxiety, you get depression because what you see, it's hardcore. You long hours at the office. You working weekends. You don't see your family. You jostling. It's hard news, bruh. And now you have to get in your car now and go. Like, I mean, I used to sleep, virtually sleep, with my beta camera next to me. And it's a motor camera. Dan spring op, hou ek in die kar, dan staat ek en ry ek woef 3 o'clock in the morning.
the,
Even when the bullet was flying, to be in the middle there, and the last thing you thought was being shot, all you did was you want to get that picture. There's like an adrenaline rush of note, like you don't know when you do hard news. When other people are running away, we are running towards it.
uh,
Also that we want to see, we want to be there. Even the bullets zooming past our necks.
so, I mean, now obviously, like you were telling us about your first gig, which is with Madiba. So, can you give me one or two other highlights as a news camera person that stands out, that that you go, flip, I
I
can't.
I think what stands out is a variety of different stuff that I've done. I mean, I think from moving news in the 90s, I was working for Reuters until about, I think probably about 8 years. And at that time, I also worked with the BBC. I worked with CNN. But for me, moving from hard news to more documentary style shooting was when I started filming with Special Assignment in 2000s, and also filming with a lot of the Afrikaans current affair shows. Uh, so for me, it was when I did like long form documentary news style stuff where we spoke about women abuse, we spoke about child abuse. For me, doing stories around that and making South Africans aware what's happening in our communities. You know, also just before xenophobia attacks took place, we did one of the first stories in PE where some of the Somali shopkeepers were being attacked. But that was on a very small scale. That was before it even exploded. You know,
Mm.
and for me, that what gives me the high is that I can do these stories to make South Africans aware.
In Johan Abrams, a mutual friend of ours, and he also started his journey as a news cameraman, and then became
Yeah,
award-winning journalist and documentary filmmaker.
correct.
You're currently working on an amazing project with him. Tell us about that project.
Okay, we've worked on a project that was probably about, it's still in post. It was 3 years ago, and the project is about the Khoi, and the story is about how South Africa was before Jan van Riebeeck arrived in South Africa. I think the idea is about, it's basically about colored identity or identity of color, depending how you will depict the understanding of that. And we did it's basically a 13-part education piece about the Khoi, about the trek, about different. We basically spend a year traveling around the country telling the story of and speaking to people, Khoi people, whether it's the Esakwas, the Griquas, just kind of telling the stories of the history of our country. Because I don't think um, I don't think we kind of we don't understand the real history of the country. There's a lot of history that was told
Especially
during
us
the
as colored people ourselves, we
exactly,
don't acknowledge our own history. We don't know of it.
exactly. And we were saying it's not, it's a tip of the iceberg. It's not here they say that, it's more about this is how we understand it to be. It's for you to do further research and understand.
But
Um,
if people want to get a taste of what to expect, I mean,
I
if they
think
go to your Facebook, your Instagram, you took
no,
amazing pictures of the people you were interviewing, so they will get
yes,
a
yes,
good visual sense of, oh my
yes.
God, this is going to be amazing.
I remember going into a place called Abimpela, and there were two sisters in the 80s that would still go to the goat kraal in the morning and still go out take the goats to the field. But just the rawness and understanding of the skins, their face, the stories they could tell, you know. Because you know you along the Harip River, which is the Orange River, along the borderline, and the light is so amazing.
And then also you've done some amazing reality show content. I remember seeing footage. I think it's a footage or a
Yeah,
video post that you put up where your sound guy was struggling to keep up with you while you're running on a
yes,
dune.
that was. I work in it's in Qatar in the Al Galal Desert. It's on the border of Qatar and the Saudi border, and you can actually see the border where you're based. And we spend like 30 days in the desert. We from 5 o'clock in the morning to 8 o'clock at night. We don't have days off. You only have days off before the finals, and amazing work with amazing people from all over the world, from Lebanon, from Pakistan, from India. There are South Africans working. There's a melting pot of people from everywhere, Algerians, Egyptians. And you know, when you say you're from Africa, then you can identify because now you're not caught in like where I'm in the northern suburbs or in Cape Town or in South Africa. You're from the African continent, you're African. And then it's scope into realize who you are as a person. How do you see yourself out there in the rest of the world? I'm from Africa. It's called Al Galil, and these guys have falcons and they're on camelback. There's about 5 different groups and it lasts for 3.5 days. So in the desert, walking, sometimes driving, and the sandstorms. And what's amazing that every walk, because it's Muslim, predominant Muslim, at every walk, the camels will stop somewhere and they'll start making salah in the sand. You know, and because of water pressure, they use sand to do
Gosh,
wudu. You know, and
it's
it's all
amazing.
and then you think to yourself, the first thing you get is like most of goosebumps up your neck, you know, to see Salah in the desert,
The
you
way
know,
it was
people,
from the start.
you know, you because you open yourself up to a different spiritual realm and you understand and suddenly your visual style changes, your visual medium changes. You become part with the desert, okay? You feel like at one with that sand, and I mean, from it's hardcore. Like you know, you gotta definitely be fit mentally, physically
Yeah.
because 2 days nonstop. And sometimes you gotta move across the sand dunes to get your shot. Without like you run like a 150-meter dash, and when you get to the spot where you need to film, you can't still. You need to hold the camera still because
So,
they like yalla yalla yalla, get done. We need to go. We need to go. Let's get the interviews done. They can't. So then, get my breath. You know, and then
just
you have to
and
get.
I must explain this to the viewers because this is the fun of doing reality shows is the fact that you have to remember when you're watching Amazing Race and you're watching all these shows that the camera and the sound guy and the content director have to be with the contestants. So there's a kind of communication that happens where we will tell the contestant you can't go too far away from the camera, but it's more the camera's responsibility of positioning themselves so that you can get shots. So now you obviously have to cover the reality that's happening, and then also you have to allow yourself to be creative. And so
Yeah.
to be creative, you need to be fit because it means you're going to have to run ahead of the person to catch the person coming to camera. There's just I've got the biggest respect for the camera operator, the sound operator, and the content director keeping up with shooting competition games, reality games like that. It's mind blowing.
I also work on. I've worked in a couple. I mean, I work now with very good friends of mine, Yunus Ali and Fakhri and Nazreen. We work on a thing called it's called Roughing It Out on SABC, and that's a reality show where we take young kids into the environment and people and show them what environments are all about. Whether it's like looking at plants, looking at crocodiles, looking at giraffes. So it's an education piece reality show.
Cool. Is it
I've also
still
worked
on
on
air?
it's going to be airing soon. Well, it's probably its sixth season now. Then I also worked in a very funny show called, and it happens always up in nines, called Bachelor Finland. One bachelor, 18 ladies
The
waiting for
Bachelor,
his.
the international format, The
Yeah,
Bachelor.
yeah, and, yeah, and I worked in a couple other reality shows, but I mean, those are the ones that actually stand out in terms of being fun.
You done wildlife
Yes, yes,
documentaries, and
yes.
first of all,
That was
I don't know of a lot of non-white camera operators that do wildlife. How did you score that?
luckily I was working. I was at the time I was involved with a company called it was a Homebrew Films with Yaku and Yaku Lopsha. They're quite big now. They've got this big studios here in Cape Town. they were very much into wildlife. And I spoke to him and I said to him, I'll be very keen to do stuff. And they had a program called Groen. And the Groen was an Afrikaans show on KykNet where they dealt with wildlife, whether it was snakes, spiders, scorpions, lions. It was totally different melting pot from moving from news, suddenly to go film a small scorpion or to go film a snake, suddenly your whole persona changed. So we used to travel around the country, up different coasts, going up to different game reserves. And we used to go out with these experts. So it was myself, the director, and the expert, and we would stay in some most amazing spaces out there, vast spaces. And that's where my photographs come forward. I love filming trees, I love filming plants, I love film, I know the minute things. And my experience, the first time I filmed a lion, it was called an Itala Game Reserve. I remember just myself and the game ranger, the director said, Shamiel, you go out. And I'm standing on an open Land Rover. And the ranger said to me, listen here, don't move. You basically got this high grass and the sun in the background. And you see, and probably about 3 meters apart where we at. Remember, nothing around the vehicle, only me and a tripod and the game ranger and his gun, obviously. But he said, listen here, don't move. It's going to pop up. And the time that lion popped his head up and looked at me, his head is so moose groot. I didn't know where to pin my pants or to record because that just being that awe of it, that creature was amazing. But I can tell you, from that day, I learned it was suddenly something different kicks in when you film animals. It's a different kind of when you film wild game. You feel it's a different mindset. Come for doing a hard news story or drug story or a different story. Your persona changes. There's a way of doing things, and I did a lot. I mean, for me, doing wildlife was just an opening to a different understanding and mindset of filming wild animals. Other challenge was filming snakes. We worked with an expert, and we went up the East Coast. It was also up the East Coast from PE right up onto the border of South Africa and Mozambique. Now in Mozambique, they call this thing called the Gabon adder. If anybody doesn't know Gabon adder, Gabon adder is like brown and white patches, and it hisses, and filming these snakes at night or during the day. And sometimes the guy, the expert's name was Mari, he's a crazy dude with the whole snake in his hand. And sometimes snake would bite him, but these were non-venomous snakes, and say to me, Shamiel, don't move. Just let the snake move past the camera between your legs, or, So it's like, But I mean, it was just amazing. Just kind
I
of
don't know how
doing
you could do I don't know how you deal with that. So, so with all this experience, I mean, amazing experience, I know that you have or always, but also more giving back to the communities by being a guest lecturer for Ikasi Media for their workshops. Tell us about that quickly.
With Ikasi Media, I've been working with him for the last three years. I went on one of the where we actually they actually work with a lot of the kids out in around the Neisner area, the Oudtshoorn area, coming from disadvantaged backgrounds. And I got involved where I went in as a lecturer showing them how to use camera, understanding physics of lights, how to use lenses and those stuff. And also I think that the whole program was successful because we had people doing sound, we had people doing editing. And so for me, it was giving back to communities. But what's most important there is a lot of those people tell stories about the communities, what's happening in the communities. But what we could also see, there were a lot of them that were artists that would approach things differently. So the idea of the visual medium was to make a mindset or change and show people that you can use videography to make a difference or tell your own stories. And I mean, today you've got YouTube compared to those days. You don't need a broadcaster anymore to sell your work. You go YouTube. You can tell the stories via YouTube.
Oh, like me now with this interview going on my Mobile First Africa page, Facebook page. It's the world has changed, and it's good. It's time that we change with it, and we as old school broadcasters are the worst people. I guess older people just take long to adapt and change to the newer environment. But Shamiel, my bro, from an athlone bra to another athlone bra, for people who don't know, athlone is Hood. This is where we come from. It's also known as the Salon. It's known for its gangsters. The affluent courts, the courts over there, with when the guys come out of the mung, or we come from a neighborhood that it's not as bad as Manenberg, but we've we are
Yeah.
the few that are able to tell our stories the way we have, and I'm so grateful that I was able to set this up with you, and I really appreciate you sharing your amazing stories. How can people keep in contact with you via your social medias? Just give us your handles and stuff like that, where they can find you.
You can get me on Shamiel Albertyn on Facebook and Albertyn Shamiel on Instagram. I'm still busy sorting out my new website, but that's where you can contact me. To message me or whatever. I'm also kind of out there to help people get along and do stuff. And I still go to a couple of seminars where I talk to people that are into photography and we chat about stuff. But like I said, I'm also open to learning new stuff all the time. And for me, it's all about learning. I think for me, about where I'm at in terms of my age is that technology would grow and the technology is new. The one thing that you can't get is experience. You can't get a lifetime experience of 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 understanding or feeling. Like I said, like I work with great people. I mean, I work with amazing people all the time. And for me, like my friend, like I mean, I work with people like I work with people, and the thing is for me, I like it's the understanding of just getting along and creating beautiful visuals, beautiful stories, and understanding where you come from. I'm open to chatting to anybody.
Cool. So, Shukran, thank you so much, and I'll see you in soon. I'll see you in person sometime soon.
Right, brother. Thanks, man.